And I'm being transparent. I'm being vulnerable. Like, that's an area of weakness for me. Another area of weakness for me is my tone. Being a great leader is knowing how to speak to people. So it's a lot to be a leader. It's a lot to become a leader. But like I said, making sure that you have a healthy community. If you don't have one, go find one. They're out there. I promise you they are. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us again on the Trafficking Free America Podcast. If you are new to this channel or you're new to this podcast, I do encourage you to click subscribe, comment, ask for resources, ask for more. Because today's topic, we are going to talk about something that is very dear to my heart and something that I'm honestly still navigating, still learning how to do very well. But what I will say is this is a podcast for nonprofits, whether if you are a survivor yourself, if you are an individual that wants to start a business, if you are an individual that works with people who have experienced exploitation or have trauma in their narrative. And I'll be transparent. It's a very touchy topic because, like I said, I'm still currently learning how to do it well. But what is a survivor leader? I could focus on that, but more so I want to talk about today with you all is what makes an individual a leader? What breaks them? What are the lessons that they have to learn? What are the things that individuals with traumatic experience may need grace in, an area they may need grace in, what resources are available? Because the ultimate thing, someone who's experienced exploitation, who's survived it, who's lived it, who's overcome it, who's now a thriver, they deserve an opportunity too. And that's the first thing I'm going to tell you all, everyone that's watching, is that people with lived experience deserve an opportunity too. Sometimes they don't have the degree. Sometimes they don't have the accreditation. Sometimes they don't have the certificate, but they do have a PhD in experience. They do have a PhD in their healing if they've taken the necessary steps. One of the things my mentor, Jim Carson, used to always tell me was I would always feel like I wasn't qualified to do this work, to be in the movement of anti-human trafficking and really combat this. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel equipped. I didn't feel like I didn't have enough experience. And he would always remind me when I would go do my speaking events, you have a PhD. You can teach these people. You can change their hearts. You can change their minds. And you can give them something new. And it has helped me along my career. But what I will say is that it took a lot of hard lessons and still a lot of hard lessons to become a good servant leader. Learning how to serve people well, whether that's as an executive or whether that is just as a case manager, because it's ultimately, it boils down to how I serve myself. And when I say serve myself, I'm not talking about bowing down to myself and giving me everything I want. No, I'm talking about how am I taking care of myself? Am I going to therapy? Do I have healthy community? Do I have Christ in my life? Do I have God in my life to where I'm submitted to something? That I'm submitted. For me, I'm submitted to the Lord, the ultimate Lord, And that's for me, because I know that some of you all that may be watching this are in a different place in your life, and it may be hard for you to receive that, and I respect that. But we do hold space for truth. And so for me, when I didn't have that relationship with the Lord, or when I didn't have community, and when I wasn't accountable to anybody, train wreck, no, there was nobody to hold me accountable for some of the decisions that I did make in my adult life. And so it's important, as an individual is learning how to become a leader, there also needs to be grace. There needs to be a lot of grace. I'm so thankful that I had people in my life that taught me how to be a leader. I went to school. Yeah, I went to college. Yeah, I'm in grad school right now. I'm in college again. But nothing beats, education other than real life experience on, failing and getting back up and trying again. And I had a lot of help. I used to work for this organization in Los Angeles, and it was my first real advocacy job. I was young, and I also wasn't ready. I wasn't being exploited. I wasn't committing crimes, but I was still thugging it. When I tell you that, I still was partying on the weekends and then going to tell kids at the high school, don't live like that, live a drug-free life, and probably still smoking marijuana at the time. So I lived a very hypocritical lifestyle, and I wasn't living with integrity, ultimately. I wasn't living with integrity. And I can now say that. I can say that now because I can be transparent about how it also affected my work. I also wasn't really good at communicating. When I worked at an organization, I was in a toxic relationship, a very toxic relationship, but I was toxic as well. I didn't do a lot of healing on myself, and sometimes I would be late. I would prioritize sitting in the car arguing rather than going into work and clocking in, calling off because I need a mental break because I just had a huge fight. And any other employer probably would have fired me. But there was grace given. There was something to be taught. And luckily, I had a great boss. I had a great supervisor that would talk to me about accountability and see how I'm doing, check in with me. And they actually didn't enable me. There was consequences to things. But I think for me and my personality, I'll condemn myself. And I think because that was taught very early on to learn how to take accountability, my leadership skills really developed and still being developed in the dark. Like, I remember I was 15 years old and I used to be at this group home, and I had a probation officer who's now also, we do work together sometimes and speaking events when we share our story. But the first lesson that she taught me was accountability. I used to be a kid in my personal experience growing up in the group home, and I would trash the place, man. I was a wreck. I would cuss people out. I would trash the group home, fight, just do a lot. And I had this probation officer. Her name was Terica Woolfolk, and she told me, every time you do something, I want you to call me first before the staff would call. And most of the time, the staff would get frustrated because they would be like, well, we need to tell you our side. One, what she did was she established trust. Two, she gave me an opportunity to take accountability. And she would ask me what happened. And I would tell her I trashed the place. I broke the window. I tried to bust the lady's car window. And she was like, what happened? Well, I had a phone call with my mom. She didn't want to talk to me. And at the time, I was still in the group home. And she was like, so you slammed the phone. You tore up the cottage because you were angry? What were you feeling? Do you know what you were feeling? I was like, yeah, I was mad. And she would gently be like, Ori, now how could you have responded differently? What else could you have done? Could have called my support team. I had other options available. It was wrong that I said those things to that lady because she do care about me. Something so small, a skill so small, taught me that the day that I left care one day, illegally, I was on the run. They would call it that then. We don't call it that now. We call it leaving care. But I had AWOL. We don't call it that now. And she told me, call me, even when you're out there so I know you're okay. And you know what it did every time I called? It taught me how to be accountable of a decision that I was getting ready to make. And that led on to my adult life. And so I was a lot more open to criticism. I was a lot more open to being challenged to be better. But there were places that gave me opportunities. I can go as far back as when I had my first job. I'll never forget because I had an advocate. I had a mentor. I had Jim, who knew some guy, the owner of the Denny's, and they gave me my job, at Denny's as a waitress because he knew I wasn't ready to be in school, and I started working, and I learned skills there. I learned how to it was the simple things that I had to be retaught because so much of my childhood and other individuals' childhood gets stripped from them, and responsibility, natural, normal responsibility gets stripped from us. And so because of the people in my life that showed grace, that actually gave me a skill, that actually walked with me while I was learning that skill, learning how to communicate, learning how to steward my money, learning how to create a budget, learning how to look at numbers, learning how to not react in a business meeting because I'm passionate about something and I don't like their solution, learning how to write that out. I had people that walked me through that. But I also had people that gave me consequences. And that was different. It didn't necessarily relate to the business end of it, but learning how to be a better leader. I'll never forget when I lived with a couple that are like my grandparents. I just was with them literally a couple days ago. And one of my mentors had gotten me an opportunity to go to Africa. And before I came back to Africa, I was telling my mentor, I don't want to go back to another transitional living home for like young adults. I don't want to go. I want a family. I was 18 years old, and he reached out to this couple that I had knew throughout my childhood, and he said, Ori doesn't want to go back. Would you guys be open to taking her in and really cultivating this family for her? And they prayed about it, and they actually let me in their house. And it's crazy because it's unlikely that this girl from where I'm from moved all the way to San Juan Capistrano in Orange County in this gated community, pool in the backyard, nice house, sunset every night you could see. And there I had to learn how to be a granddaughter. And I had to learn what it was like to sit at a table for dinner. I had never had that. I had to learn what it was like, y'all want to play board games? Absolutely not. I had to learn those things. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you all was because I also had to learn what structure looked like again. And I bring this up because there was a consequence. I'll never forget, it was on New Year's Eve. I wanted to go out and hang out with an unhealthy relationship that also cost me a healthy relationship. And I lied to my grandparents and said I was working that night because they said they didn't want me traveling in the car way to LA from San Juan Capistrano. Like, it's drunk drivers out there. People could be drinking. Rephrase. There's people that could be drinking. You could get hurt. Anything could happen. We don't want you out that late. And I chose to be like, I'm going to lie. And I'm going to go anyway. Even though I'm 18, I'm still under their roof. And the reason why they had that, not necessarily a rule, but a boundary, was because they were concerned for my safety. And I lied and said, well, I'll be working anyway. They came up there to visit me while I was working because I don't know if they felt bad or they just felt like, let's go support her. We know this one. And I wasn't there. Didn't answer the phone. I took a lot of money out of my account because I was probably out partying that night. And they prayed about the decision. I came back home the next day and I didn't answer their phones too. So they up all night worrying, stressed out. My grandpa look at my account. He's seen all this money gone. He don't know something has happened to me. Mind you, they're not from my world. They've never lived my life. So they're concerned, as genuine, healthy people would be. And I was asked had a time frame that it was time for me to get my own place. Yep. And somebody else could say, well, they put you out, or, they didn't give you a chance. They did. They gave me multiple of chances. Taught me how to budget. Brought me back to my relationship with the Lord. Showed me what love looked like, what gentleness looked like, what consistency looked like. Taught me self-discipline. And the reality was, it was one area that I wasn't ready to grow in, and that was following rules again in my life, because I had this false sense of freedom throughout my life. But I'll tell you something, when I moved out, it forced me every single day. I used to drive all the way from deep in South LA all the way to San Juan Capistrano, past San Juan Capistrano, in order, like an hour and 40-minute drive every single day. Traffic sometimes 2-3 hours, late at night. And I went to go work at my job still. I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings at the time. And I would drive all the way back every single day. And I saved all my checks and I got an apartment. But it taught me a valuable lesson though. And it wasn't about the lying. It wasn't about breaking a rule. But it taught me to take accountability. And so that's the first thing as a leader. This is such a big topic, I think, that in the field of human trafficking, because one, there's a lot of organizations, a lot of companies that lack the resources or choose not to use the funding to hire survivors of human trafficking, which I would highly encourage, but I also encourage to connecting them with a mentor, connecting them with an agency that walk alongside them, kind of like a third party that would prepare them. There's organizations like Elevate Academy that prepares survivors of human trafficking with kind of like the certification in the classes. And it's an online academy that could provide them and equip them with the necessary tools and resources and skills to prepare them for the workforce. I recently found out about another development that happens also in Florida that had a grant that is providing them with a credit, like the money in order to go back to college. And so sometimes it's providing somebody with a skill or partnering with an agency that could walk alongside them in order to really prepare them for a job, a field that they want to be in. Everybody's not going to be a speaker. Everybody's not going to do a podcast. Everybody doesn't need to be a trainer, and everybody doesn't need to work in nonprofit organizations in order to make a meaningful impact. Many of the individuals that I know in my life are doctors now. They're lawyers, estheticians, veterinarians. They have all different type of careers, but somebody did give them an opportunity and a chance to learn how to be a good leader. And so for the individuals, if you're already in this field, live your life with integrity. Be willing to learn. Be willing to be challenged. Be willing to keep learning and keep growing. Work on yourself first. Don't do it backwards like I did. Jump right into this field and you do more damage and harm than good because I was still trying to figure myself out as a young 18-year-old. Could I have done small things? Could I have advised on certain counsels? Absolutely. But direct service work, right out to life? Absolutely not. Take care of yourself. I know you want to change the world, and you will. I know you want to change lives, and you will. But take the time to heal. Take the time to love you. Take the time to re-explore. Find out what you like. Find out what you don't like. Go to school or get a trade. Just live life. Don't wrap your experience around of how you make money right away. It'll come to you. I'm in a space I am now, and things have gotten much clearer. They've gotten much clearer. I knew that, I wanted to impact people's life. I knew that I had a gift of speaking, but I didn't really think that I was qualified to be a leader. But guess what? I'm a leader in my own way with how I train people, how I equip people. So live your life with integrity. Make sure that you're healing. Make sure that you get in a community. Wrap yourself around individuals that are really living out their life and they produce fruit, good fruit, patience, kindness, joy, self-control. And when I say that, I'm serious. People that are meek, people that speak with gentleness, because so much of our lives as survivors, we've had enough rough. We have. And we don't have to be strong. We should be able to be in environments that are safe, that are vulnerable. But you have to do the work on yourself first. The next thing is also make sure that you're taking care of your family, your child, even if it was by a trafficker, even if it wasn't in the best. Get that in order first, man. Take care of your family first, because companies, organizations, they care about you, but you can't be replaced. Take care of you first. Make sure that you're doing a SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my challenges? What are things that I can grow in? Do self-assessments. Do whatever you can to keep growing. Not just healing, but growing. Read, learn. Your experience is not the end, and it's not the only experience. And as I'm sharing all of this, if you are a nonprofit organization, if you are a company, these are things that can be embedded in the hiring process. Sharing curriculums, having that a part of their training to learn those things, to implement that in their life, making it your core values, especially with people with lived experience. I think another thing, what makes a great leader is consistency, discipline. You have to have discipline in your own life. That is an area I am learning to do because my ADHD be kicking in. But that's not an excuse. I have to be disciplined in my health. And that's an area where I'm lacking because I choose with my finances to eat somewhere or eat out or eat unhealthy. And guess what? It's going to cost me my life. And I'm being transparent. I'm being vulnerable. Like, that's the area of weakness for me. Another area of weakness for me is my tone. Being a great leader is knowing how to speak to people. So it's a lot to be a leader. It's a lot to become a leader. But like I said, making sure that you have a healthy community. If you don't have one, go find one. They're out there. I promise you they are. Making sure that you're living your life with integrity. Making sure that you are under some authority, because that's how humility is practiced, actually lived out. Making sure that you're working on yourself. You're taking care of yourself with your wellness. You are going to therapy. I don't care what kind of therapy. You're going to therapy. Making sure that you're consistently learning. You're consistently growing. And be open to new experiences. Be open to learning a different skill set. That's how you become a healthy leader. That's how you become a good leader. And that's how you finish well. And that's how you don't burn out. That's how you can finish well when it's time to pass the baton. You got this. And we can do this. We can help raise leaders. I'm raising a leader in my household, my diva. We can do this. Our teams that we have, we can cultivate a safe space, but also an environment that teaches people how to really thrive and walk in freedom, true freedom. All right, y'all. I will see you next time on the Trafficking Free America Podcast. And talk to you soon.